So what the 49ers are doing here is they're running what's called a drift. So you're going to run a play-action fake off the right side, and Pearsall is supposed to run what's called a drift route. It's supposed to be 6 steps and an in-breaker. It's about 10 yards, 6 steps. Sometimes it's 7 steps if the other foot's up, and then it's a work to space. Okay, it's break at 10 yards and work to space is what the coaching point on this is. Now, this has been Ricky Pearsall's problem since he got here, which is he's on the line and he's got to work through press man. So, first thing you do, you don't give up your chest as a receiver. So let's watch Ricky here, where he's going to give up his bam, jammed hard.
Yeah.
Okay. This was a route that Ayuk ran all the time. Okay, now understand he's supposed to be 6 steps and in. Okay, we're going to count the steps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then he breaks. Okay, so he's breaking a step early. Now he's breaking this. He's supposed to work to space. You got an underneath defender. Brock is expecting him to run this more as a post. Yes, I understand the safeties here, but he's in a bail. He's not flat-footed. So this is, again, these guys have not had that much time to work. So Brock is going to throw this ball as if Ricky's coming here. All right, Ricky's going to square this off, and he's going to slow down at the top of the stem. Watch this. So there he sat down. Okay, so Ricky tries to sit this down after Brock throws it, and it's off. Okay, again, he's expecting Ricky to move this way. Ricky came here, and he sat it down for a second, and look at Brock's reaction. Okay, he's throwing his arms out. So that tells you that Brock was expecting Ricky to keep on the move and run more of a post, work to space. Those are the things you always look for on film too. Like, how do guys react? That tells you a lot about what they're expecting. So there's a run fake. He sets, throws, and Brock is just going, "Oh, what are you doing?" That is a quarterback and receiver not being on the same page. Now, Brock probably still needs to put this ball on him, but you're an anticipation thrower. You're throwing before this guy's breaking, and you're expecting him to roll here. But he doesn't. He tries to come back to the ball and settle down a little bit, and that's just, they're not on the same page.
And you're right, he did slow down too. He kind of sat on it and then moved forward, and by then it was already too late. And it something you had talked about is that Brock throws with a lot of anticipation. Is that a detriment to the team, or you think that's something that is a quality, an asset to this team?
Well, and I think that being one of his strengths, I think is a big reason for what we have seen a lot of this year, is that so many of his picks and so many of his struggles I've seen have been he's throwing, expecting a receiver to be in a certain spot, and they have not been there. And then when they are, it's like he's just a little hesitant to pull the trigger, and sometimes he's taking sacks, sometimes they're giving up pressure, sometimes then the ball's coming out late. The Ronnie Bell pick versus Kansas City is a perfect example. Is he's throughout that game, he was constant, like that first half. If you remember back to that game, it was like he was throwing and nobody was home. And people are going, what is wrong with Brock Purdy? He looks terrible, not hitting his guys. The ball's
Which game was
off
this?
the mark. This is the Chiefs game.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Okay, the first half of the Chiefs game.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was watching when I was watching film was so many routes were just off. They were not where they were supposed to be. And this was, Debo, the pneumonia game. Debo's out after the very first bit. This is Ricky Pearsall's first game as a pro. Ronnie Bell was not doing great. Brandon Ayuk is running routes that I haven't seen him run before because he's trying to fill in for Debo because Debo's got pneumonia and he's out. And so routes that many of these guys haven't run or hardly run, they're just not on their landmarks. They're not in the right spots. And it looks horrible in that first half. And the game's getting tight. And suddenly Brock is not trusting his receivers to be in the spot that they're supposed to be. Then starts trying to guess where he thinks they will be. And that's what happened on the Ronnie Bell pick. He throws it where he thinks Ronnie Bell is going to go because he doesn't trust that Ronnie's going to be where he's supposed to be. That's on Brock, okay? You've got to keep throwing to your spots, and if If your guy isn't there, that's on the wide receiver coach, that's on your head coach to make sure they are, that they get into their spot. But Brock so much has been trying to make up for some of these lack of executions, and he starts pressing and he starts putting the ball in harm's way, and he starts not trusting his receivers, not trusting the offensive line, and the whole thing really starts to look disjointed. That's what you started to see. But this is reasons why. You see things like this happen and you go, and that's why. And that's why the next drive, he rips that ball and he's just trying to make a play, even though they had a good disguise in coverage, doesn't really have time to check the deep safety and make sure that the coverage was what it was pre-snap, and doesn't, and he's forcing the ball, and then you have the backbreaker turnover. The second pick was really the backbreaker. That was the one that just put the game out of reach. And you see why. Like, that's where Brock will frustrate me, and I want to see growth, is like, look, what Tom Brady used to do when that would happen is Tom would keep throwing it to the same spots and say, you guys have got to be where you're supposed to be. When Joe Montana would do it, he threw it to the same spots. And Joe Montana would throw sometimes 3 picks in a game. And it was like, I'm going to keep throwing it to that spot that you're supposed to be in. You need to get there. Like, that's, and if we don't win this game, that's on you. Like, I'm going to keep doing what I have to do. And Brock has to learn to take that and say, look, I'm going to keep throwing to the spots I'm supposed to throw it at. If you aren't there, or if you can't protect, if you can't do your job, I'm getting a sack. Like, Tom Brady used to do that all the time. We saw him, and he was tremendously healthy, right? Tom would drop back, and that right tackle would fail everything. Tom would just plop to the ground, right? He would duck. He wouldn't take that big hit. He didn't try and salvage that play because his right tackle blew his assignment horribly. He'd get up and he'd look at his right tackle and glare at him, and the guy would be like, yeah, my bad, man. And he would then try and pick up his game because he knew if they did that, they would function as an offense. That's what we need to see with this team is, Brock, you don't need to try and be the hero to make up for everybody else not doing their job.